What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today, we're gonna add a splash of color to the Honda CB500. Let's get into the video. So here's what's on tap for today. This seat is in desperate need of paint. If you caught any of my earlier videos, you will know that I worked with Dustin Cott of Cott Motorcycles to have this seat fabricated. If you know his work, you'll recognize this design, immediately. This is kind of his signature look. Very fortunate to get my hands on one of these, and it's really like the centerpiece for this bike. So the way I received this is already, all the bodywork is done, it's primered, it's ready for paint. It has been upholstered already, so this little leather edge here might prove to be a little difficult, but nothing we can't figure out. Full disclosure, I did get some quotes from some local shops near me to have this painted, and it was upwards of like $700. So that is no discredit to paint shops. They do great work, but we're gonna do things a little differently, and the goal is to see how good of a job we can do with some trusty rattle cans. This has been paint coated to match the white paint of the tank, so it's a BMW Alpine White is the paint code. Was able to order it, super cheap, it was like 20 bucks, but that is the mission for today. In terms of the paint scheme, we're going solid white. So this whole rear section will be white compared to previously on the bike. This is an old seat back when I had no idea what I was doing. You can see that I continued the red stripe pattern that goes down the tank, down the seat as well, but you can see just how much smaller this cowl is compared to this, and I think it'll be a little more flattering just going white, having the red accents just be on the tank. So that's the plan. When I first picked up the seat, I did film a short little sequence, getting it mocked up on the bike, seeing it on there for the first time, so I think this would be a good excuse to see that again, so let's roll that now. So we're gonna break this process down into 3 steps. First is gonna be preparation, second, the actual paint and clear coat application, and then third will be the wet sanding and polishing and buffing process, hopefully ending up with a pretty nice finished product. Similar to other videos, before we get started, I'm just gonna do a rundown of all the things that you're gonna need on hand to make this job as easy as possible. So, obviously we got our seat that we'll be painting. We have our color coat, that's the Alpine White. We have a clear coat. Personally, I like to get the clear coat and paint from the same company just so I don't have to worry about compatibility issues. We have various tapes, this one being my preferred one, this frog tape. I specifically get this for multi-surface, and the reason being there's like a felt liner underneath here, and I want to make sure that as I'm taping off that edge along there, that I have something that will adhere well. We got some plastic drop cloths just to keep everything clean. We got plastic gloves, eye protection, and then can't stress this enough, a respirator to make sure you're not breathing that stuff in. As you can see, ventilation, both of these garage bays are open. Side door for some cross ventilation, and we'll get more into this later, but we will be doing some wet sanding, so this is some wet sandpaper, and obviously for that we'll need some water, but don't need to show that now. So that's kind of it, not a whole lot, and then just a workable space. So let's get started. We're gonna begin by prepping the seat. So I'm gonna tape off and cover up everything that isn't gonna be getting paint, so everything other than this section right here. The only thing I'm a little nervous about is this right here. So because this is already upholstered, I need to figure out a way to basically be able to tuck tape under there to get a clean edge, but then I also need to kind of get a little bit of paint right under there. That yellow you're seeing is just some glue adhesive that actually doesn't look to have stuck very well. So that is going to be where I'm going to have to spend the most time and attention to detail. Under here, I want this underside of that lip to get painted, but obviously not the felt, so I'll have to be pretty careful there. This I'll just cover with some plastic. So I'm going to spend a little time and get this prepped. All right, that actually went a little better than I thought it would. But basically I just went and put that tape as far under that leather seam as I could, and actually the act of doing so kind of pulled it up away from the tail, which was the goal. I'm gonna have to re-adhesive this once I'm all done, but I'm not concerned about that. But I'm pretty happy with that. So now when I spray, hopefully I'll get a little bit under there, so when the leather lays back down, there is a little bit of overlap, and you shouldn't see any of that under there. So that was pretty good. I'm gonna continue. All right, I think we're done. Might have gone a little over the top, but with this type of thing, better safe than sorry. So we are left with this area exposed, and if I flip it over, everything here is covered up except for this seam right there. So everything that's gray is getting painted. So this is going to be the area for spraying. You can see I pulled the tool chest as close to outside as I could, and then covered it with plastic just to protect it. And I did build this little structure right here, and that is just to keep the seat itself up off the surface. It'll make getting under these edges a little easier. The last thing we're gonna do before we apply the color coat is use a tack cloth just to get any last dust and whatnot off there so we have a clean surface, but that should do it. So I am by no means an expert in painting whatsoever, but something I've learned just from using rattle cans for projects over the years is there's something to be said for, obviously, the technique to using these. And the best way I can describe this is, this is my item that I'm painting. When I'm literally coming down on the nozzle of this, I want to have the spray going already before I come into contact with the item. So what that looks like is, instead of this, which would be press, spray, and the first spray is hitting the item, starting off to the side, I would start my spray over here, and while that is already going, it would be spray, move, keep it going, spray, move, and so forth, and so forth. Otherwise, when you first hit the applicator, you're gonna get just some splashes and splatters, and it never looks good. So just quick tip, remember, start your actual paint spray before you hit the item and just get in that rhythm. Back and forth, back and forth. All right, first coat. All right, I don't want to overdo it. You can still see, there's gray from the primer sticking through, but I'm gonna stop there for the first coat. I'm gonna hit the underside real quick though. Okay, second coat, tack cloth again. Get any dust off. This paint is really nice because it only needs about 10 to 15 minutes in between coats, so you can move pretty quickly. as you can see, after a second coat that is on much more evenly, can't see any primer, at least not from what I see. Let me bring the exposure down. It's laying really nice. I'm actually very surprised. I've never painted something with this type of curvature before, so following the curvature of the seat with the spray can actually was a little trickier than I thought. So you can see underneath, it's going pretty well. Hey everybody, picking up where we left off. We're back on day 2. It is quite the dreary day today. I don't like to paint when there's more moisture in the air on rainy days, but we're going to proceed anyway. We're going to throw a third color coat on, let that dry, and then proceed with the clear coat. Slight deviation from the plan. We're not going to be getting to the clear coat today. If there's one thing that I can recommend as a takeaway from this video, it's not to rush anything that has to do with paint. It's hard to see, but there are a couple spots where, dust settled in the wet paint, and a spot somewhere around here where I was impatient and touched it with a, with a glove on and left a little bit of a smudge. So my instinct says, let it be, don't rush. We're gonna fully let it dry, come back to it on another day, hit it very lightly with some probably 1000 grit sandpaper. We're gonna hit it again with a fresh color coat, and then based on how that goes, we'll proceed with the clear coat. So patience is key here, but hopefully it'll be well worth it. Okay, we should be good. Let's let it dry. So, on the topic of paint, I thought this video would be a cool opportunity to show you guys what I had in mind for the headlight bucket. So, as you can see, we have our white paint up here as well, and there are some imperfections and some dings. I was gonna clean this up, and then at the same time, I was gonna paint this outer ring so that this whole bucket would be white. But I decided to take a different route. I picked up from Cognito, right here, an entirely new headlight bucket. So I've seen these on some of their builds, and I really like it. So there it is. This is the plan. I'm going to paint this entire thing white, including this ring, and I think it'll be a pretty cool look. So that's going to be a later video. Won't be as involved. We'll have to scuff this up, prime it. But we'll go through the same painting process, and I'll do kind of like a before and after. So that is for the future, but figured I would mention it now. And on a completely unrelated note, I thought it was worth mentioning around here, it is beginning to look a lot like fall. And this morning when I got here is one of the first mornings when I had that nice little annual reminder that working out in the shop on your bike can get pretty cold. Only gonna get colder. This is the Northeast, so we're going to be getting snow. But that is the name of the game. I think there's a lot of guys out there that can probably relate to the fact that most of the work you get done on your bike is during the colder months. So the build must go on, but figured that was probably worth sharing. And now that I think about it, I think our paint has dried up, and we're going to put some clear on. So I didn't realize this until I was literally about to paint. The nozzles, so it was fine, like turned out fine. But on these rattle cans, so the color code I was using, I love these new nozzle designs. It's kind of hard to tell here, but the spray is vertical like this, so it gives you a nice even spray. But as I popped the lid on the clear coat, it's, you know, the, let's just call it like the old school type of rattle can, and it makes it more challenging. So keep that in mind when you're sourcing paint. If you can, go for these newer styles. I think it's just an easier application, but we'll still make this work. But yeah, that caught me by surprise. I just came by the shop after a few days of letting that paint dry. I'm happy to report that I'm very, very happy with the results so far. So here's where we are at. The clear dried really nicely, really consistently. I don't have any runs, no dust. We are ready for wet sanding. So I'm gonna get in a little closer here. If you are new to painting, something that needs to be dealt with is what's called orange peel. So you can kind of see it around here. That kind of rough looking texture looks very much like an orange peel. There, if you look. That is what we are going to be wet sanding out today. Fairly easy process. It takes some patience, but we're gonna go through that now. So with wet sanding, something that's helpful and will give you a little easier time is if you soak your actual sandpaper for at least 24 hours. So this has been soaking in just a Tupperware of water overnight, and I'm mainly gonna be using, I think, just 2000 grit. I might start at 1500, but chances are just 2000. And basically the goal here is to sand down that orange peel, smooth it out, get rid of those ridges and that texture from the orange peel without burning through the actual clear coat. So something like this, it's relatively small, pretty easy to work with versus like larger panels. So we're just gonna be going in small circular motions over this entire thing. Less is gonna be more. We're gonna check it periodically, make sure we're not burning through that clear. And what we're gonna be left with is kind of a dull, hazy look. It kind of makes you look like you've ruined the good work you just did with the clear coat. But once we get to the compound phase in a couple weeks, once this is cured even more, waxing, that's when that color will really come back, and that shine and that brilliance, and hopefully just a really nice mirrored finish to match our tank. So let's get started. Okay, so I wet this down. We're gonna take our 2000 grit, and we're gonna start just doing small, even, pressured circles. I'm going to dry this off to see what I've actually taken down. I can still see there is some orange peel, so I'm going to keep going. And you can feel it as you go. You can feel the roughness. So you can see in this area, we still have that orange peel, but you can see probably around half of it it's much duller now. So we still need to hit these areas here and take that down a little more. Okay, so here's a good way to demonstrate how you lose the luster when you're wet sanding. So we're going to use the reflection from this light, which you currently see right there as an example. So as we pan over, you can see here reflective, here reflective, here reflective. We see the reflection. As soon as we get here, you see this side instantly dulls. You can even see that this division line right here on the ridge. So that is what you are left with. You completely dull out your clear coat. And then again, as mentioned before, once you apply the compound, that'll all come back to life. think that is where I'm going to stop. In this light, you can still see that texture, but everything is pretty smooth. So I'm hoping, here's another area down here. You can see it in this light, but I'm hoping that after the compound, that none of that'll be a problem. See it here, but overall, it is very smooth. I'd rather stop here at the risk of burning through the clear coat, as I only did 2 coats per the manufacturer's suggestion. So let's move on. So next up, we are going to be using a compound on this. I went with Turtle Wax. It's a polishing compound. I've used Meguiar's before, but to be honest, this is a little cheaper, and I'm curious to see what we can do on as much of a budget as possible. So this is going to go on with a small foam applicator. Start on one area just to see how it kind of behaves, and then we'll go from there. This is hard to see on camera. I'm gonna grab this, take it outside, but it's going great. I'm very, very impressed. I just did the one panel, but if you can see that panel all the way to the left, pretty reflective compared to the rest. Very happy. I'm gonna time lapse the rest, and then we'll see the end product. I am so impressed with how this turned out. The camera does not even do it justice, but that is a mere finish, if I do say so myself. I mean, I could not be happier. That is only after one compound. In another week, because the paint needs to cure for a total of 3 weeks, I'm going to finish things off with this hard shell. It's a paste wax. So hopefully that'll bring out a little bit more shine, but even if it doesn't, this is what I'm gonna call a success. And I don't know about you, but I am eager to get the plastic off of this, so let's do that now and then see it on the bike. Guys, I'm drooling over this. It's not even on the bike yet. Check this out. Whew. So much better. I'm going to be staring at this thing for quite some time. Let's get on the bike. Alright guys, and with a setting sun, that is going to wrap this video up. I could not be happier with the turnout of this project. And, you know, to be honest, the biggest takeaway here is you can do this too. Let this be proof that you do not need a $700 custom paint job to produce results that you will be proud of. I mean, this cost me under $50 start to finish. It took a little bit of time, a little bit of research, and a little bit of trial and error, but I'm very happy with how this turned out. And that is what this is all about. I mean, all right, my camera died during that last clip. Don't mind the awkward angle. The camera's plugged into the wall to keep this charged. But to end my little rant, all I was trying to say is don't be discouraged to try something you haven't done before. For me, that is literally at the center of everything that has occurred with that build over the years. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something. Be sure to stick around to see what we tackle next on the build. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.